Hi, I'm Satwant. I'm here with another tutorial on helping you going from daydreaming about development to developing on Daydream. So in this tutorial I'll be teaching you about a very simple grab and drop mechanic using the Daydream controller. This was requested by RefRef1990 on YouTube as well as on the Daydream District community page as well. So if you wanna request a tutorial, a specific one, then that's probably the best thing to do. Leave a comment and also leave a message on the Daydream District community page. I'll leave a link to that in the description below the video. So let me show you what I'll be teaching you today. So in front of you can see a table. If I look around, okay, I admit it's a very basic table, but for now we're just prototyping, so this will work. So we have the table, we have a can, and we have the controller, which I'm moving with the emulator on my phone. Now if I touch the can with my controller, it now gives me the ability to pick it up by clicking the controller button. So if I click on that, now I can pick it up and it moves wherever my controller moves. So I can move it over here, I can move it over here, and of course if I click the controller button I can drop the object as well. So this is a very simple mechanic, but the premise is very useful in VR because it really feels like you're moving objects and it helps with immersion, of course. So in the next few minutes I'll be showing you how to do that. If you want to skip the if you want to bypass having to type this all up, I've also put this on the Unity asset store. There's a link below, and I've also it would really help me if it really helped to support what I'm doing. I've just charged it for the lowest I could really put it for, which is $1. Of course, if you don't want to pay, that's totally fine too. I'll show you all the code and I'll show how you can do this step by step as well. So it's entirely up to you. But please do leave a like and a comment. That would help too. Okay, so let's jump straight into this. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a new project. So let's do that now. This way you can follow along even if you haven't done the last tutorial. Although I'd recommend you have a check of that just because I cover a few other things in there, like the settings for the project. Alright, so I'm going to save it as grab drop tutorial. I think that will do. I've got 3D on because that's what we're creating, a 3D project. I'll just save those changes from the last project, the last scene of the last project, which I was just showing you. So I'm using 5.6.1 for this particular tutorial, although anything on 5.6.0 and above will work, so there's no need to worry if you're using 5.6.0, but I'd probably recommend that you upgrade if you can. So I'm going to also change some of these settings now so that we're working for Daydream VR, which means we need to first of all change to Android and switch to platforms, which has been done. Now we're going to go to player settings and we want to scroll down to virtual reality supported and select Daydream, since we're creating a Daydream device, a Daydream app or Daydream game in this case for the Daydream device. I'm going to leave the rest of this for now. That should be okay. And now I'm going to go to Assets, Import Package, Custom Package, and I'm going to select the Google VR for Unity package that I've already downloaded. I show you how to do that in the previous video, but if you want a quick tip, just Google Google VR SDK and it should pop up. Then I'm going to deselect iOS from the plugin section. So we have, just because it will reduce the weight of the project, it's not a big deal, you don't even have to do that if you want, but I'm just going to do that. And now we're importing the package. So now that that's imported, I'm going to go to File, Edit, Project Settings, Audio, and I'm going to change the Spatializer plugin to GVR Audio Spatializer. That just gives us that kind of 360 audio, which is so useful in VR. Now I'm going to select the demos folder, and I'm going to go to scenes, and I'm going to slide in this GVR demo package scene, and I'm going to remove the untitled one, and that takes us exactly to where we were before in the last project, which is where we're going to really start off this one. So I'm going to press play and just make sure this works. Look at the sound. It seems like everything's working. Look at the controller. If I click on that box, it should vanish. There we go. So that's working. So we're up to date now on where we were before. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to resave this scene. So I'm going to go to Save Scene As. I'm going to create a new folder, which is the button just here. I'm going to call this Scenes. Hit Create, and I'm going to call this Grab Drop. And I'm going to hit save. So now we have the grab drop scene. This cube that we have here, as lovely as it is, it's not useful for what we're doing. So I'm going to remove that. And let's talk about what we're trying to make before we get started. What we're trying to do is we're trying to create a table, and we're trying to have the ability for you to grab an item off of that table. So we'll need the ability for us to know if the controller hits an object, and then once we've hit it, we need to be able to know if the user taps the controller button and lets go of the controller button, or clicks the controller button again, and whether that's all happening while the controller has touched the item we're trying to pick up. So it's not much when you kind of use the project, but when you actually try and build it, it does amount to quite a bit. So first of all, let's add a floor to this project. So the reason I'm adding a floor, if you're wondering, here we go, is so that if this floor, which is a little too low, just increase the position on this, and I change the position to 0, 0 here. That's better. Should be roughly in the middle. There we go. That's better. So actually 0, 0, 0 is great. Now you can see that it's going a little. There's a color distortion. The reason why is because it's perfectly aligned to the original floor that was on this cube. But I'm going to remove the mesh renderer so you can't see that. Now the reason why I've done this is because we need a mesh collider, and that's so that if we drop the can off of the table, it doesn't fall through this square box into nothing. This way it just hits the floor. So that's fine, we've done that, and I'm just going to quickly save the project as well. So pretty good time to done it. We've added the GVR stuff and we've just added the floor, which is useful. So now let's add a cube, which we're going to use as our table. Put that around here. Let's hit the resize button and let's change size of that. It's pretty big. Looks a bit more like a table now. And now let's also, this comes with a box collider, which is useful. It means objects can sit on top of it. So why don't we create let's rename this from cube 1 to table. And then let's create another object. If I right click here and I go to 3D objects and I'm going to choose capsule. Oh no, I'm not going to choose capsule, actually that's wrong. We don't want a capsule. What we actually want is a cylinder. That's more the shape of a can. And then let's shrink this down to, I think that's good enough. So now we have a table, a capsule, and our camera. But the capsule, if I lift this up into the air and I press play, we'd expect the capsule, the can to fall, but it's not falling. And we've also got this odd color distortion, which is a bit odd. I'm not sure if this is a bug in Unity, since on the left hand side it's the right color, it's the correct color I should say, and on the right on the right lens it's the wrong color. We can see slightly darker. But there is a simple way to fix that. And what we need to do is really apply a mobile shader to that, or mobile texture to that. So let's do that now as a quick fix. So let's go to, also I was going to say this can is floating in midair. So what we want to do is add a rigid body to that. So let's do that now. So if we hit play now, this can falls onto the table, which is exactly what we want. But what I also do is I'll just lower this down so it's sitting nicely on the table. There we go. And now let's create some materials of some kind anyway. So let's go to assets, let's right click in here, let's create a new folder, call it materials, and inside that just create a material called table, and let's create another material called can. So what we're going to do is change this shader to mobile. You usually want to use mobile when you're working on a Daydream VR app or game, because it's a mobile device and it's less heavy. So let's click on table, let's click on texture, and let's pick a texture that's come with Unity for now. You can download loads of textures for free off of the asset store, but for now let's just pick one of these. This table, this touch blue is quite good for a table I think, and this can, I'm going to go with this cursor here. That'll do. So the next thing to do is select the table, drag the material onto the table, and we've got that blue, and then select the cylinder, which I'm going to rename now to can, and drag the can material onto the can. So we've got a can, and of course we've got a table, and the can sits really nicely on the table, but as you can see from this angle here, we've got our next issue that we need to fix, which is, I'm going to select maximize to play off actually, so we can see both the scene and the game when I hit play. So I want you to be able to see on the right hand side we have a controller. If I move up, and we can actually see that that's quite far away from the table, which isn't very useful. So there's a few things we want to do. first thing we want to do is go and find our controller here, which is going to be inside player. It's going to be the pointer here. So I move this forwards and up. I think that's a bit more useful. We want it to be around table height. So around there is quite useful, I think. And a bit more forward. If we look at the distance from where the camera is to where we're facing, it looks about right. And I'm going to now copy this transform, copy the component. And then I'm going to untick the play button and go back into the normal version, normal Unity editor mode, and paste the component values, since Unity doesn't save what we've done while we were playing it. But now we've moved things forward to the point which seems about right. But this table and this can need to move too, so let's bring that a little bit closer for now. It's about right to me. And if I click the controller, it's about there. So if I push this back to about here, what I really want to do is just make sure that we can touch the controller, touch the can with the controller. And if we look here, we're going right through it, which is perfect. In fact, we could probably move the can back on the table a little bit more. Seems about right. And what I'll do is I'll copy the transform for this can again, and I'll do the exact same thing. So we've got a pretty good positioning here for everything, and I'm going to hit save. Now if you're wondering what happens if the can's outside of the area of grabbing, what can we do there? I think we'll leave that for a later tutorial. So let's just focus on this grabbing and dropping for now. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add some code to the controller. And the reason we're going to add it to the controller is so that it will work for the grabbing mechanic will be on the controller, so it will work for as many objects as we want. Instead of putting on the object, which will force us to have to put it on every single object, which we don't really want. So let's go to the controller, which is here. I'm going to double click this so we can see it and go to here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add first I'm going to add a collider, a box collider, which is here. I'm going to shrink this down. Okay, that was a mistake. So if you're trying to shrink down a collider, that's not the way to do it. You want to hit add box collider and hit edit collider, and then you want to change the size values, which is so bad. If I do that, I can get it to roughly around the same size of this. I wonder actually, if I remove this, if I go inside here and try, I think this might be a better place to put it, because I think this is where the actual, there we go. So if I add a box collider to this particular layer, that's where this controller actually is, the image itself. So the box collider automatically wraps around it. So that's the difference between adding the box collider to this layer or alternatively this layer. So I'll leave it here, which I think this works. It doesn't really matter, it won't have any effect, any major effect. And now what we can do is I'll hit save again. We can add, I'm going to change this to is a trigger as well, because the point of the trigger is so that when it hits an object, it will let us know, it will trigger an event, and that event will allow us to know that it's hit an object, and then we can deal with that. So now I'm going to create a script called controller grab, new script. I'm going to find that in the assets folder, create a new folder called scripts. I'm going to add controller grab to scripts, go inside script, double click on controller grab, and it opens up controller grab for us. Okay, so let's get this trigger working for us first of all. So let's do void on trigger enter collider other. So what this is saying is on trigger enter, so that as soon as the trigger enters another collider, do something. So in our case we're going to say collision enter for now, just to make sure it works. And then we're going to copy and paste this code, and we're going to do an exit one. So we need to know when we've entered the collision and when we've exited it, because we don't want to grab an object that we're not touching. So if we've exited the collision, we don't want to run any code. We don't want to run the grab code. So that's quite important as well. So let's check if this works now. So hit play, and what we should get is the message should pop up in the console. So it says collision enter already because we were touching it, so I'll clear that, and let's have another check. You can see a little bit clearer from this bird's eye view as well. So I'm going to move the controller and let's see if it goes on. So it entered, let's see if it exited. So we're not getting an exit one for some reason. Let's have a look at the exit code. So on exit, not exited. A simple mistake to make, but it makes a huge difference, obviously. Okay, so exited, enter, exited, enter. That seems to be working. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to move this can just a little off center to here. That way when we start the game we're not already touching the can. So now we have to move this way. Oh, okay, we're off slightly here, so what the can should really be about here. So I'll take that, I'll copy the component, and I'll paste it on there. Okay, so let's test it one more time. And that should be fine. Enter, exit, enter, exit, enter, exit. You can see the numbers going up each time that happens. And they're always even once I've exited, because it's how it should be. And they're always even as I'm going to add them both up. Alright, so we've got that code working. Now what we want to do is we want to check, well, we want to create a boolean called isContact, and we want to set that to false. And what we're going to do is this is just going to be a bit of a reference point for us, so that when we've actually when we run any code, we want to know whether we're in contact with an object that we can grab. In this case, false. And now what we want to do is we want to have we want to know when we press the controller. So to do that, we need to use the GVR controller click button code. So to do that, actually has to go in the update function. So I'm going to type that out, which is GVR dot GVR controller dot click button and one down. So this tells us when we click the button. If you can just search the GVR controller, and you'll get a bunch of stuff like the app button, for example, and the touch button. All those features are all online for you to use. So now we want to do if and only if is contact is equal to true, which will be set if we're triggered. Now we want to do some grab coding, right? So we want to have the object that we're grabbing, which we haven't got a reference to. So let's create a reference to that as well. So let's do public game object grabbed, and this is going to be set here. So object grabbed is going to be equal to other. So it hasn't been grabbed yet, so but it will be grabbed, right? So we could even rearrange, we could change it to object to grab if that's a bit more clearer, but for now I'm going to leave it as object grab. So if is contact equals true, and here's the other thing, if contact is true, so if our controller is basically touching something that we can grab, and we haven't already grabbed it, because we might already be grabbing it, we want two different things. So let's do that first as well. So we need another bool. If bool is grabbed equals false, right? Because I mean, if we I'll put the bools together. So bool stands for boolean, true or false. I'll just shift this up so you can see the original code as well, the code below that we just did. So if contact is true, we want to run some code. If it's not true, as in we're not touching the can, we don't want to do anything. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do if is grabbed equals true, else if grabbed is false. So else is obviously, obviously if it's grabbed, the alternative to grab is not grab. What we want to do is we'll say we want to drop the can, and here we want to pick up the can, right, or object, because it could be anything. So the way we're going to do this, so how are we going to do this? We know we've got two pieces of code, and then we basically finish, right? That's it. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to take the can and I'm going to put it inside the parent object. So I'm going to parent the can. So in the same way that these are parent objects of each other, I'm going to put the can inside the controller as a child object. So let's have a look at this. It seems like we've got an error. Okay. So we've got an error here saying cannot implicitly convert a collider to a game object. So here we've got a collider, and I've created a game object here, and it's saying these don't match up. If we want to match up, we just have to do other dot game object, which gets the game object that that collider belongs to. So in the case of here, we'll touch the collider, that's the can has, and it will take the game object here and give it to us, store it for us, which is what we want. So now we've saved that, that should go away here now, should vanish. There we go, perfect. So our code's running okay. So yeah, okay, so let's go back to this. Let's get the object grabbed, and let's do get component get component, and we're going to take the transform of that, and we're going to parent that transform, and we're going to make the parent of the can transform is going to be the controller itself. And when we click it, so if it's already grabbed, we don't want it to have a parent, so we're going to change this to null. So let's see what happens now. It won't work, I'll tell you that now, but let's see what happens. So we'll hit play. That's not good. Got another error here. Of course, game object dot transform. So the transform is referring to the actual, is what's parentable rather than the game object, which is just floating around really. Alright, so let's hit play and let's try again. And let's see what happens when we click the app. I'm going to clear this, go over it, it's touching, collisions occurred, so we should be able to grab it. I'll click the button now to grab. Did I grab it? Don't know if it doesn't seem to be doing anything. I don't know if it's picked up the button or not. So let's have a look at this. Find out whether I've missed something or not. So is contact is true, is grabbed is true. Okay. So I've got this the wrong way around. Really what I want to do is if grabbed is false, because we haven't grabbed it yet, then once you've grabbed it, is grabbed should equal true, because we've grabbed it now. And then once you let it go, grabbed will equal false. Right, but we want to just get rid of these extra equals because we're not comparing. Here we're comparing, which is why we have 2 equals. Here we're not, we're signing, which is why we have 1. So now it should work. And what I'll also do is I'll just hit a debug here so we can clearly see if anything goes wrong, at what point it, at what point we get to. Grab button pressed. I'm going to put something similar here, which is drop. Drop, and the button is pressed. So let's try again, see what we get. So we've got a collision enter. I'm going to click the button. We've got a grab. Brilliant. So something happened. It seems to be parented, but as I said, this wasn't going to work. What's happened is it's gravity still being applied. It's falling all over the place. It's kind of cool. It's not terrible, and it's not really grabbing it. Nobody grabs an object like that. So let's update this and see what's going on. If we go to the can, which is selected, which is good. We parented it. But the rigid body, in fact, let me just quickly show you what that parenting looks like in the code. So we have the can here on its own. If I click on the can, as you can see, vanished for a second there. The can's actually inside the controller now. See this controller? Which is why it moves. It moves each time I move the controller because it has that as almost like its original position. It's its parent point really. So it's a bit like if you were inside a house and someone moved your house, you would move with the house, but you would also roll around in the house because that would be like an earthquake. But we want this can to be stuck perfectly in place. So the way to do that is to go to the rigid body, which is the part that's really affecting the physics and causing the physics, and we want to put is kinematic on. So there's dynamics physics, which is rolling around, and is kinematic, which kind of just means it won't move unless we we explicitly force it to move. So let's add some code here. So we've got object grabbed dot get component, and here we're going to select the rigid body now, and then we're just going to do is kinematic equals true, and then we're also going to take this code and we're going to change it here. To false, and save that. Try now to see if that works. So we grab the can, pick it up, it's stuck perfectly to the controller, double tap it, it drops, falls down, which is fine, and we've basically got it working, which is great. This is the tutorial that we wanted. So the only other thing I'm going to show you really quickly is if I drop it off the edge, still not dropping off the edge because I haven't taken it far enough. There we go. I can't reach it anymore, which is fine. I mean, we can look at grabbing in a future tutorial. I think we've done quite a bit in this one. So I'm just going to teach you something really quick, and that is just resetting the position of this can. Before I go any further, I'm going to save the scene and the project, and I advise you to do the same thing if you haven't done so already. Go into can, and let's create a new script called reset position, or pause for short. Create and add. I'm going to go find that script, which is going to be in the projects. It's going to be in project here and assets. I'm going to drag that into scripts. Go into scripts, and I'm going to open up that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to immediately, as soon as this project starts up, I'm going to take. I'll make this a private actually. It doesn't need to be accessible to anything else. I'm going to take the starting position, and I'm going to take the rotation of this. So rotation is done in quaternions, and please don't ask me to describe that to you because it's a lot of complicated maths. Just think of it as just know that it's rotation. So start position here. So as soon as we start off, we get the position of our object and we store it. And we also want to do that with rotation. Component rotation. Nope, that's wrong. Transform we want. And then we want to take the rotation from the transform. If you're wondering where I'm getting this from, just very quickly, we go to the can. That's the transform. So we've got the can itself has different components. Has a transform, has a cylinder, has a capsule, has a mesh renderer. We're taking the transform, and now we're selecting the position or the rotation. We won't need the scale since that never changes, and we're storing those in values. And what we're going to do is in the update, we're going to say if GVR controller dot, and it should be one for app button. There we go. If GVR app button is pressed, we want the game object, which is the can itself, get component, transform dot position. Right, why did I do that? I think I did a comma. Is equal to start pause, and we want the same thing with the rotation as well. So let's save this, and let's see if I mess up and I throw this off the table, if we can reset this by pressing the add button. So I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to move it off of the table by dropping it. So it's rolled off, and if I press the reset button, it comes back on the table, which is great. That's really everything you need to know for picking up and grab in an incredibly simple way anyway. So I hope that's helped you. As I said before, if you want to skip having to type this out, and you want to help me out as well, and that would be great. I'll leave a link to this. I'll have it on the Unity Asset Store soon, which should be on by the time this video is up. In fact, here's a preview of it, what it will look like, and then you can just download it immediately for $1 with all the code. It already works on Daydream. I've tested it out on there. Of course, if you don't want it, that's fine. Just follow through and you'll have everything you need. I hope this has helped you. On the future tutorial, I'll cover what Ref 1919 asked for as well, which was movement. So how can we move around, which I think will be useful, because then we can move around and we can pick up other objects, and if something goes out of range, we can pick that up. And then maybe I'll keep building up off of this and create a bigger project as well, if you like. I think that would be kind of useful. Maybe even a puzzle game of some kind. But if you like the sound of that, leave a comment. If you like this video, please leave a like as well and share it around. It'd be, it would really help me, and it'd be nice to know what you think of this, and if you'd like future tutorials, of course. I hope this helped, and thanks again. Good luck going from daydreaming about development to actually developing on Daydream. Take care.